Hello, this is Charles Montgomery of KTLIT.com, and today you are here for episode 1 of KTLIT's 300 Seconds. Today's 300 Seconds episode is going to focus on Korean author Kim Young-ha. Kim Young-ha, who has been successful both in Korea and in the United States and other English-speaking countries. And I'm going to focus primarily on his work in English, because I speak English, and most of the people who look at this vidcast speak English. He was born in Hwacheon. He's in his mid-40s. He grew up living just below the demilitarized zone, that is the 38th parallel in Korea, and this allowed him to have access to, I guess, what you would call propaganda from both the North and South, or news if you're from the North, or news if you're from the South. He was a detective in his army service, which I think influenced his work. In an interview he said he saw a lot of things, a lot of strange and bad things. And he decided to become an author when he was relatively young, and he was one of the first authors who I really loved in Korean literature. I was reading one of his short stories, Photoshop Murder, which I'll talk about in a second, and the first line is, "Why do murders always seem to happen on Sundays?" And as soon as I heard that line, I knew that I was dealing with an author who basically I would understand that I was, that he was writing about a Humphrey Bogart-like character or an embittered detective. And that is this book, Photoshop Murder. Photoshop Murder is a Jimundong LTI Korea collaboration, and you can find it on Amazon inexpensively, and it features the story Photoshop Murder, which I just told you about, a detective in a failing marriage who's trying to figure out the murder of a man who has had his head stove in. And the second story is whatever happened to the man in the elevator. I wonder whatever happened to the man in the elevator. And this is the story about a man in modern society whose life is literally, well, turned upside down. He wakes up in the morning, his razor blade snaps, and nothing ever goes right for him after that. Great story. So you can pick this up again online for somewhere around $5 or $6. His breakthrough story, however, was I Have the Right to Destroy Myself, which is this book. I Have the Right to Destroy Myself is a very existential story of a man whose job, essentially, or his art, essentially, is to assist people in suicides. And it also includes some tangled love relationships. And it shoots around soul and the world. Very, very modern. It has references you'll understand to Klimt as an artist, to Western beers and whatnot. And it was a massive hit in France. And it was also a reasonably big hit for a translated work of fiction, that is, in English. And on and off, I know that Hollywood has toyed with the idea of doing a series based on this particular book. So that is I Have the Right to Destroy Myself. Again, a relatively slender book that you can find online inexpensively, and this you might even find at bookstores. In English, Kim Young-ha made his leap up with his spy novel, his story of a North Korean spy who is embedded in South Korea and one day gets that fateful call that he's been waiting for, and that is, "Your Republic is calling you." And the message comes from his handlers in the North, and he's unclear what it all means. He has settled into a very normal middle-class existence in South Korea. He's become middle-aged, kind of paunchy. Again, the marriage that isn't really quite working. And it's Aristotelian in its way. It takes place in the course of just one day, and you work with him as he works his way through the awareness that he may be being called back, or he may have been caught by South Korean spying apparatus. And basically, at the end, you discover what the real situation is. A really pretty good spy novel. And then just recently, Kim Young-ha released a sort of historical thing that it's interesting. It's called The Black Flower, and it's based on a historical event around the turn of the 20th century in which slightly more than 1,000 Korean settlers went to Mexico to become farm workers in Mexico and ended up pretty much stranded there. And it's the experience of how they worked in what was essentially slave labor, how they got out of it, and what happened to them. And to this day, actually, you can go and find, I'm told, Korean surnamed families in some places in South America. So those are the four stories: Photoshop Murder, I Have the Right to Destroy Myself, Your Republic is Calling You, and Black Flower. Kim Young-ha, some of Kim Young-ha's work is also available online free, and you can go to www.ktlit.com to find that. There's a page called Free Korean Literature Online. That's 300 seconds.